Welcome to Conversation with Zaki Baruti, with your host, Zaki Baruti. And like always, I want to give a shout out to my biological family. What's happening? To the Universal African Peoples Organization family, what's going on? And to New Life Evangelistic Center family, headed by Reverend Rice. Keep up the great work, and a shout out to our amazing cameraman, Bob. On that note, we're going to have another great show because we're going to be doing a series of conversations with a noted educator dealing with the whole issue of education, especially as it relates to black children. And I'm speaking none other than Dr. Barbara Anderson, who's with Communities
One.
Okay, welcome again.
Thank you.
All right. Again, you know, just for anybody who may have missed the very first show that I interviewed you, and again, as I made mention, I'm so honored that you are sitting in the chair as an educator, because, you know, as an educator myself, education is real dear to me as far as our children. Would you please share some background information about yourself for those who may have missed the first show?
Well, I am a product of St. Louis Public Schools to begin with, all the way from 1958 to 1970. And I've taught in St. Louis Public Schools my whole career. Again, product of SLPS, and actually postgraduate as well. Went to St. Louis University for 2 of the degrees, and Webster University for 1, and Harris Teachers College was the beginning of my career.
Okay, so you have your degrees in what?
All in education.
All in education.
Harris Teachers College, it wasn't Harris Stowe at that time. Harris Teachers College, I have a degree in elementary education, K through 8, lifetime. I also have a Master of Arts in Teaching from Webster University, which means I'm a certificated master teacher. I have a Master of Arts in Administration and Leadership from St. Louis University, and a doctorate in education from St. Louis University as well.
Oh, okay then. Now, as a educator, for me, my educational experience, I enjoyed teaching. I loved my students. What have been your experiences as an educator?
The children, the students have never been a problem. What has been a problem is that we as educators, we were allowed to do things that we knew would work with our children. And that's when we were in the educational form of policy making here in the city. And after that broke down from educators' perspective to the businessman's perspective, is when we started failing. They started making decisions for businesses instead of for educators. We had a lot of wonderful, wonderful programs. And one that I'm going to highlight was called Reading First. And that program really trained our teachers to be absolutely excellent teachers in reading. And what happened was they said it cost too much. And so that program was disbanded. So
it was called Readers First. And did you have a proven track record that it worked?
Oh, absolutely.
And so what, it was for the purpose of teaching young people to actually be able to read proficiently?
Yes. The problem is that the people that make the decisions decided that the Reading First teachers didn't have enough students, because it called for really concentrated instruction. And so they decided that you don't have enough students, so we're going to trash the program, and they did. And they said it was just too expensive to train.
So when they say
teachers.
you didn't have enough students, I mean, the ratio of the teacher and the student was, what would you say at that time there?
Under 10 to 1. Most of the time, those teachers had maybe 4 or 5 kids. Again, a high number, a large number was 10. And so the powers that be felt that that was not conducive to the budget.
What, you know, and that's the issue in of itself in terms of the number of students that a teacher have to educate within the classroom. What had been the average ratio, which many people would say was too high?
Let me go back to our years in the classroom as a student. It was not unusual to have 40, 45 kids in a room. There was a big push to have smaller class sizes, and that worked for a little while. But actually, most of our classrooms are 25 plus. The ideal class size is 15 or less. I've never had that experience except as a Title I teacher where the government required you to have 10 or fewer students.
Okay then, so and most academians would agree that the best for students are 15 and lower, am I correct?
Yes.
And you were saying that readers class, they had reached their objective, but it had to be closed out.
Yes.
Okay then. Another issue though that I saw while in the classrooms, you had the whole issue of social promotion, where you had students that had not really captured the English language, quote unquote, being able to identify, to spell, know the meanings of different vocabulary words. And did you have that kind of experience?
Oh my
reading?
God.
And what's your thought about social promotion?
I think it stinks to high heaven. I walked out of the college. I walked off the stage into an 8th grade classroom where most of my students were not even 10 years younger than me. And I was held to a 10% cap on the number of students that I could retain because they didn't get the message. And I had to do that or lose my job. The truth of the matter is you got to me in the 8th grade reading on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade level. I want to know how I can take a kid from reading on a 3rd grade level to reading on level in
Right.
1 year. So my whole thing was, wait a minute, you're putting all of this on my back. They came to me not being able to read.
Right. And I had those same kinds of experiences, but we'll talk more about it on the other side of the break.
An epidemic of homelessness is sweeping throughout the United States of America. In city after city, people are ending up on the streets. Now, instead of feeling overwhelmed, as believers, we can do 3 things. We can give, we can volunteer, and we can pray. We can pray for the homeless refugees that we're finding in one city after another, all over the United States. So many people ending up out on the streets, and the hearts of so many are growing cold at this particular time and indifferent to the need. Jesus said, as oft as you've done it to the least of these, he said, even so you've done it unto me. When's the last time you've prayed for the homeless refugees in the United States of America, appearing in city after city, not only in major cities, but even smaller cities? So many people ending up out on the streets, even in resort areas, places you never think you'd find homeless people, they're there. Jesus said, foxes have holes and birds have nests, but he, the Son of Man, had nowhere to lay his head. Please pray for the refugees. Please pray for the homeless people in America. And pray for those that are on the front lines, the first responders, reaching out through Jesus Christ among the homeless and hurting, whether it's in Springfield or St. Louis. Your prayers and gifts to the New Life Evangelistic Center makes a big difference. This New Life Evangelistic Center, P.O. Box 473, St. Louis, Missouri is 63166.
Behind me is the New Life Evangelistic Center administrative offices in Overland, Missouri. And this is where we shoot our shows for our worship shows and the Here's Help Network. And it's also where Zaki Baruti and Bernie Hayes shoot their shows. You can find all of these shows at the New Life Evangelistic Center app, the NLEC TV app. You can also access them on your tablet or on your computer. And this is how you can stay up to date with all the things that New Life Evangelistic Center is doing. There are so many different programs that we've got going on, and God is doing many exciting things through partners like you. So if you want to support the work that New Life is doing, then please access and give through the app. You can go online at nlecstl.org or give us a call at 314-421-3020. Again, 314-421-3020. But this is the best way to get plugged into the amazing work that New Life is doing through people like you. And so there is something for you to get involved in today. And we are so thankful for our partners. Only through the grace of God and your gift are we able to bless others today.
Welcome back to Conversation with Zaki Baruti. In studio with me is Dr. Barbara Anderson, one of the leading members of the Communities One movement. And that movement is about what?
Keeping public schools open for our neighborhood children. We want to have schools in the community so that we don't have to transfer our kids all over the place, so that we can establish some stability in our school culture. And to actually, what we really want to do is establish an educational campus where kids from ages 3 to 21 can go to school in the same area and only have to cross the street.
Well, you know, back in the late 70s, 80s, I forgot what was the case, where there was some black parents saying that their children weren't getting the proper education, so they pushed for the children to leave St. Louis public schools,
Yes.
to go out to, quote unquote, the county areas to get, quote unquote, good education.
Yes.
So what happened in that process then? I mean, are you critical of that process?
Well, the folks that thought they were running away from a problem took the problems with them. And those districts were not prepared to handle our children with our own special issues. So was I in favor of that? Oh, hecky no. They used to send us letters and ask the principals to write down the names of our top students so that we can refer them to the county schools. So I just took mine and put in the trash.
Wow. But you made mention, like, going to those county schools with special issues. What kind of issues did we have?
Well, we had issues of social promotions. Too many children were going into classrooms with few skills, and they were not given the proper support to enhance those skills. And that's true all over the country, from sea to shining sea. We all are facing the same problems. Folks run away from what they think is a problem. What they don't understand is they're taking their problems with them. And one of the big issues was, of course, the white elephant in the room, discipline. And there's a huge culture difference in the way we bring our children up to respect authority. And unfortunately, that was taken away, and the parents thought that they were going to get just a better deal in the county with the so-called other children. Many parents were bragging about, my child is the only black child in the classroom. And I'm scratching my head on the inside, saying, do you know what you've done to your child?
Wow. So also part of the negative effect, young people had to get up so early in the morning to catch buses.
A bus.
Am I right around?
6 o'clock in the morning. Well, let's put it this way. It's usually dark when they go to school, and it's dark when they come home. That's a safety issue.
Wow. It would have been interesting to track the record of those students who went out there versus the students who stayed within the school system.
Let me help you out with that.
Oh, okay. Please do.
Many times when we sent our children to those county districts took that state money and built new buildings. They profited a great deal on St. Louis public schools.
And at the same time, the public schools here have been crumbling. I mean, they've been closing a lot of schools. Am I right around?
That is
okay,
correct.
Then. Okay, then.
So that did not solve the problem. It didn't.
Okay, then. So that's where we want to get to. How do we solve the problems? Now, as an educator, and I salute you because you've been outspoken in terms of different proposals as well as criticizing some of the decisions of the St. Louis public school systems. And in fact, you have written several articles that's been published in the publication that the organization I represent, Universal African Peoples Organization, in our publication that's called the African News World, which is a quarterly newspaper. I want to review a couple of those articles and give you a perspective, if you would, on the articles in of itself. And for anybody who's listening and want to see some of those articles and read them in depth, you can go to our organization's website, which is www.uapo.org, and click on News World. But anyway, in one of our editions of our newspaper, you had an article titled, "Community Needs Dunbar Open as a Full-Service School, Pre-K through 8, Not a Virtual School." And then a subtopic, "Communities continue to fight for the children's public school. It's not only about depopulation." So what was your main point that you're trying to drive home in that article?
I'm going to hesitate before I say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. We have a terrible habit of doing the same things over and over, which meet with failure. And yet we just keep making those same mistakes over and over again. And to me, that's just the definition of insanity. We have had a policy in this city of breaking up communities and pulling children out of their communities for every reason under the book, all the way from desegregation. When the white kids pulled out of their schools, they left a lot of empty classrooms. And so they put us on buses and used us to fill those empty classrooms. That's not deseg, that's filling empty classrooms. So that was a farce. Then the next thing we did to pull our kids out of the communities, well, we invented this thing called magnet schools. And what that did was pull all of our kids, not all, but it pulled many of our children out of our communities to these schools of special emphasis. And there aren't very many of those concepts left, of course, because federal monies went out. But people are still able to say they want to go to a magnet school, but that didn't help anything. All it did was tore the communities apart again. And that's what we do. That's our answer to everything. Close down the school, ship the kids off somewhere else. Well, we're saying it's time to stop that practice. It didn't work. We continue to lose students. It's time to come up with something new. And that something new is an educational landscape.
Okay, then now on the issue of Dunbar, were you able to save it? You can share that thought on the other side of the break.
Okay.
For years, Zaki Baruti has been an activist in our community, and it's a real privilege of mine to have known Zaki, to be with him on many of the marches, and to continue to see his perseverance. You and I also must know that we can, in the midst of pressure, and yes, there's a lot of pressure on being an activist. It's a thankless job. Many times people don't appreciate it. Many people don't understand you. They ridicule, they reject you. But we have to continue to, in spite of the pressure, to continue to trust God and speak truth to power. That's not easy. It's easy to give in. I think of the nuclear submarine USS Thresher that went down so deep in the 1960s into the ocean. It just exploded or imploded, and the pieces were all over, and 129 men died. But yet there's those fish they discovered later that could continue to swim in the midst of all that pressure that destroyed that submarine. Why? Because there was equal pressure inside that little fish that withstood the rest of it. Now you and I can experience that power inside of us, and we find it right here in the Word of God. For greater is he who's in us than he that's in the world. Christ, the hope of glory, can come and dwell within us. As we surrender our life to him, we'll see him do exceedingly abundantly beyond we can even ask or think. This Bible is just filled with directives, how to overcome pressure. Read the book of 1 Peter, where it says your faith is more precious than gold. See in 2 Peter chapter 1, the promises that are awaiting you at this particular moment there. And continue to look at how the disciples overcame pressure in Acts chapter 5, even counting it all joy, as James chapter 1, verses 2 and 3 tells us, in the midst of pressure. It's right there in the Word of God. I'd encourage you to read the Word of God and let Christ's hope of glory come and dwell within you, because the pressures are becoming more and more intense at this particular time. But truly, you and I can be the activist, more than conquerors through Christ who strengthens us. Continue to persevere, never giving up or giving in, but continue to give it to God, moving forward, experiencing hope and help at this time.
Welcome back to Conversation with Zaki Baruti. In studio with me is Dr. Barbara Anderson, Community One organizer. On the other side of the break, referring back to your article about Dunbar Elementary School, trying to save it. Were y'all able to save it?
We were not.
You would not.
The research is still in place, however, and we're going to try again, because the research shows that the better equipped schools and the more stable schools and the more sustainable schools service pre-K through 8. Dunbar fills that requirement. We would have pre-K through 8 at Dunbar. Vashon even has a...
Is Dunbar still open or is it closed?
Oh, no, it's closed.
Okay.
They closed it.
Right.
There were some political reasons that were involved as well, of course, but that's happening all over the country again, from sea to shining sea. And
Dunbar, I'm sorry, it just came on my mind. In terms of Dunbar, was named after. You took me back to my child. You took me back to my childhood. I attended a Dunbar school, elementary school in East St. Louis, Illinois. But anyway, for a minute, what's the historic and the significance of his name?
Paul Laurence Dunbar.
Paul Laurence Dunbar, a great playwright.
Yes, right.
Writer. Okay, then. All right. Another article that you have written into, which has been a series of articles, A Troubled Future. What were you, for learners in St. Louis and across the nation, what was your main point there?
We're all facing the same problems, and we're all making the same mistakes over and over and over. It is a troubled future for public education. There seems to be a wide-scale fight against public education, and we think that that's simply because it behooves certain people in places of power to have an uneducated mass. They don't want us to think independently. And so these huge sweeping errors that they've made in public education just continue on and continue on.
Wait a minute now, you're saying that some powers to be want people to be
in charter schools.
Okay, in charter schools and not educated
in the public schools.
And in fact, I think your elected president is talking about closing down the Department of Education. Am I correct?
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay then, wow. Okay, A Troubled Future. And then you have an article, Education Report, which was part 3 of a 3-part series, Critical Condition. Wow, again, you're speaking of education then, huh?
Yes, and the death of public education. And we just don't seem to get the message. Stop trying to run the schools like a business, run the schools like the educational institutions that they are, and let teachers teach. Stop buying all of these crazy programs that demand implementation with fidelity. Has nothing to do with the progress of our children. They just want us to make sure that we're following the vendors' instructions. They're not educators.
Wow.
They're business people.
Right, right. Another article I want to touch upon that you had in our newspaper, which was called, and this was the beginning of another 3-part series, Silver Bullets Only Work on Werewolves. Wow, something that acts as a magical weapon, especially one that instantly solves a long-standing problem. So what was the main thing in that article?
You can't use these one-shot deals. Nothing works for everyone. That is the reason that's the reason all of us went to school to become educators. Because you have a very well-written plan doesn't mean that it's going to work for everyone. That's what the teaching degree is about. It's being able to take whatever you have and adapt it to student needs, not to program fidelity.
So, is there any hope? But before you answer that, we got to take our last break.
There are so many people who work in our community glorifying God with the gifts that they have, and we thank Zaki for doing that regularly with us. You can make a difference too by partnering alongside New Life Evangelistic Center. If you're tired of seeing all of the pain and the hurting around you in your community, and you're ready to get into the trenches and to work alongside a ministry that has been doing this work for so long, consider and pray helping New Life Evangelistic Center to be there when people are hurting. Zaki has done that for many years, and we're so thankful for that. You can be a part of the difference too. You can be a part of the team, God's team, of working to help heal the hurts of hurting people in our community. We would love to partner alongside you. Please contact us soon to get involved with the work of New Life Evangelistic Center.
Our lives can often be like a field that's just sitting and waiting for productivity. In order for it to take place, though, the plow has to come and turn the ground over so the divine seed can be planted. And that's why Hosea chapter 10, verse 12 says, break up your fallow ground, for it is time to seek the Lord until he comes to rain righteousness on you. In order to do that, the plow begins to take place. And we've got to start looking for the miracles that follow the plow. It turns the ground upside down, the seed is planted, and from it comes a great harvest of love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, self-control that we read about in Galatians, the fruit of the Spirit. The Lord wants to do a miracle in your life at this particular time. I know if you're like me, we're hating the waiting, but we have to step back and we have to look for the miracles that follow the plow. I believe God's doing a great work at this moment. Let's continue to remain steadfast in the Word of God, believing Him and looking for the miracles that follow the plow.
Welcome back to Conversation with Zaki Baruti. We only have a couple more minutes with Dr. Barbara Anderson, Community One organizer. On the other side of the break, is there any hope for public education?
Absolutely. I have often said, our problem is us. Our solution is us. We are proposing an educational landscape where parents can drop off the whole family at one time. And we have the educational institutions that are right there within walking distance. And this idea will give us sustainability. It will promote stability. You remember back in the days when you went to Mr. Smith's room and he knew not only you, he knew your mother, he knew your father,
Absolutely.
he knew all of your siblings. We need to reestablish that and bring the community back into education.
What kind of response have you been getting from that type of vision?
Well, the federal government wants charters, state wants charters, and it seems that many of our city officials want charters. It is an uphill battle. However, I think that if you create a beautiful educational landscape, parents will be attracted to send their children to one place, one campus, and we need to staff it with absolutely perfectly certified people, folks with experience, new teachers. There is hope. We can do this.
Okay, on that note though, if anybody wanted to join the movement of Communities One, how would they get in contact with you?
Through Miss Tilly's Corner at gmail.com, and the phone number is 314-495-3686.
Say that again now.
314-495-3686, and the email is tillyscorner@gmail.com.
Okay then, and so with that said, and you say there's hope in the future.
Absolutely.
But also to implement the thoughts that the vision you have to have a school board that's receptive. And there's an upcoming election for school board candidates. Is Community One be very involved in the upcoming school board election?
Oh, absolutely.
And when will that election be?
I believe it's in April.
April,
Of
okay.
next
then.
year.
Well, to that end, we'll be having you back in studio with me, because I'd like for you to analyze some of the writings that I've projected in terms of a couple of booklets that I've written over back in 1980 and 81. So I'm always excited to have you. I want to thank you for taking time out to be with Conversation with Zaki Baruti, and may God bless you.
And it is a pleasure for me to be here and to be able to say these things.
Okay, and on that note, as I just mentioned, there will be some elections in April, so you guys start studying, audience, the issues, and you need to all go out and vote. We need 100% turnout for the elections. Also, join an organization that speaks truth to power and have a track record. We say join the Universal African Peoples Organization. On that note, may God bless each and every one.